everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Daisy Jones and the Six Rewatch podcast. Now, when I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which is another way to say Carpe Diem, and it's all about going after the things that you want in life. Something that I wanted to do this year was rewatch the show Daisy Jones and the Six, but this time talk about it with other people. So I'm really excited. I'm going to do another fun interview today. And before I introduce my guest, just a really quick housekeeping item. I'm not sure if it's going to be relevant for this conversation or not, but these interviews are not spoiler free. If you're looking for spoiler free coverage of the show, I did a recap of each episode that's spoiler free up until the episode you're on. These interviews could potentially drop any detail from any episode of the show. So just please know that up front. But if that doesn't scare you off, I'm so excited to have you here because I am really pleased to welcome my guest, who is Rebecca Wachtel, who is the makeup department head. She's Emmy and Guild nominated for this show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk with you. This admittedly is not an area that I know a ton about. So for those who have already gone through all of the episode recaps, you probably know you didn't hear me say a lot about the makeup of the show, except maybe around the concert scenes. So this is going to be a really fun way to dive into it and get a lot more information about what you did, Rebecca. But first, I need to ask how you got connected with this show to begin with.
Sure. I was on another production called Truth Be Told, which Hello Sunshine was producing, and they were in prepping for Daisy Jones, and I basically said, I want to do it. I just went after it because when I heard about it and that it was all in the 70s, it's like my dream show, dream era, and they brought me on. So it worked out.
That's amazing. You got to keep the networking strong when you're working on a project, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's kind of how you get your jobs.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, as the makeup department head for this show, tell us more about what the job entails. How many people were on your team? What was that like actually day to day for you?
So day to day, I mean, every day is different because, you could be shooting, I'm sure you already know this, but day or night or, different locations. So everything, it's always changing, which is something I love about this business. But this show had a large cast, just, as an ensemble cast. So we had Ann Period. So we had about six of us in the main department to get just the main cast through. And then there would be, anytime there was background working, we needed additional people. And there was a background makeup department that was an extension of us that I oversee, would create boards for, and it could be anywhere from like 2 people to 15 people working, depending on how many background there were.
Hmm.
We had to just make sure everybody looked era appropriate. The one thing I think people don't realize, and I'm proud of all of us and our team, is how many tattoos the cast had. And especially in those skimpy little outfits, or Warren with his shirtless vests on. They were covered in tattoos. A lot of the cast, pretty much everybody had tattoos, I think, except Suki and Cami. So there was a lot of tattoo cover to make it look, because in the 70s at that time, they weren't popular. Maybe if you were a sailor, or something, like it was very specific, or who had tattoos at that time. So we had to kind of erase a lot of current day popular trends to create the 70s. Also piercings, like facial piercings and ear piercings on the guys, and we'd have to fill the holes. So it's a lot of the things you don't see, but kind of create a very natural vibe for the 70s.
How does one go about covering an existing tattoo in a way that believably, because I mean, they're getting close-ups, especially in the main cast. So you're getting really in there. And certainly never caught a glimpse of that. So how do you go about this?
Well, that makes me happy.
Yeah, I've watched it a lot. Never saw one of the
Yeah.
tattoos.
So basically, you can go about it different ways, but mainly we would airbrush them. So there are different makeups that are alcohol based, and you can put them in the airbrush and match their skin tone. But nobody is, well, I shouldn't say nobody, but majority of people are not one tone, all the way around their arm. It's like more fair here and darker here, and some people have freckling, like Sam. So he was probably one of the trickiest tattoos to cover. He had one, two, three, four, five. I think he had five at the time. So, but those alcohol colors, they stay, they don't come off they have to remove them. So they would last all day. We'd seal them. Like Riley has, oh gosh, I'd have to count them, like 8 tattoos or so, around that. And
Wow.
and she's pretty fair, like me as well. So I would cover all her tattoos. We would do body makeup to make her tan, and then do her face.
Wow, that is unbelievable. With Sam, I like the day, when he's in his uniform of denim on denim, it's probably good days for you, maybe.
Yeah.
But like all those like shirtless getting into bed scenes, like, can we get him
Yeah,
running in a sweatshirt again today? We just need a break.
yeah. He was actually, he has one on his arm that I covered almost daily,
Yeah.
but the other ones are on his chest and under his arms and areas. And his back for his shoulder. So we didn't have to do them that
As
often. Yeah.
often. Yeah.
Mhm.
That is so interesting. I mean, here I was thinking about asking the questions about what we see, but there's all this world of things we don't see because of what your team did. I'm already diving into a specific detail there, but let's back up again a little bit. It seems like the work that you were doing needs to be integrated with other departments because you're creating a look and a feel for these characters, and it all goes into a visual style for the show. So I'm curious, like, which crew members were you or maybe I shouldn't even say crew, which people on the team were you collaborating with the most? And was there a process for setting what the tone and style was going to be?
Yes, there's different layers to this. So, like when I got the show and in prep, I had to create boards to show what all the characters, including Tom and I think the six characters, if I can remember back, but all the main characters to show their transition and all the looks that they would have throughout the show over the different time periods, basically. And so I would create boards for that and then run it by Amazon. We had meetings with Amazon and Hello Sunshine. And then they would either give like notes back or feedback on we like this, we don't like this. And that's kind of the first stage. And then the second thing I think is when I met Denise, who is the amazing costume designer. And it was amazing because a lot of our imagery and ideas, and we hadn't met before, we created boards separately, but they were just in sync. And I I collaborated with her a lot on creating the looks. And then the actors kind of they do have some say to a point, but I think also on a period piece, and they were all young and they didn't have a lot of strong opinions on what it should look like, and they all wanted to be authentic and do and it to be appropriate for the time periods. I think they really trusted us.
Hmm.
But I went in and met with them all and showed them the boards and my ideas for what their looks would be. I had somebody come in and do fittings so that we could have facial hair pieces made for the guys. And then we had test days to test on different looks. We tested a bunch of different mustaches on Lauren. I
So
really,
facial hair is your side of
yes.
things, not the hair department's.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
Anything,
interesting.
only the only thing that's the hair department is like the hair on the head.
Mhm.
Any body related thing is makeup.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
And if they say someone was going to have a bald cap or something and then have hair like laid over top, that would be makeup.
interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. Good to know the
Learning
separation of labor here. I'm just absorbing all of it. So okay, so 60s and 70s, you were saying that the cast wasn't really immersed in that time period, but you obviously had to be, and it sounds like you had an interest in that time period anyway before you took the show on. So, what kind of research were you doing to prep for what these looks would be?
Well, I mean, I wanted this show because I'm a kid. I grew up in the 70s and that whole era, I just remember it and I knew the feel it needed to be and the vibe. And I basically, for referencing and making boards and creating their looks, I watched a lot of documentaries on that time. I did, just on the internet pulling things, but they had the cast already, which was great. So I could see them and know what their characters, right, like. So, I have to read all the scripts and I know the general like feel of the character and what kind of person this is. And from that time, like what kind of facial hair would, Eddie have? Like what kind of guy is he? Or what kind of, and trying to break down all the characters and think about what went into it. So I didn't want to like fashion them off of a specific musician from the time. They were, I think the closest one that probably had an inspiration from that era was Suki and Debbie Harry, but more toward the later 70s. And yeah, I just pulled things from and kind of felt my way through it. I don't know if that makes sense. And what would work on the actors they had cast for the characters and what those characters would be like and what would make sense for them.
Hmm.
I don't know. Is that me answering your question?
It does. Yeah, that's perfect. And then, obviously once you start seeing what the other, what costume design is bringing in as well, I'm sure that has a lot of impact on color choices and things like that. But that definitely gives me a sense of where it all began for you. When you have, let's talk about like when does your day start and end? I know there's a difference between night shoots and morning shoots, and there's probably a difference between whether it's an episode that has a ton of background actors and not. But give us a sense of like how far before shooting time your team would start.
So typically, when we had all the cast in, we had a 3 hour pre-call. So
Hmm.
say crew
Wow.
call is 7, which is the majority of the crew come, where they're at, 5, no, 4. Can't do math. And yeah, so we had about a 3 hour pre-call to get everybody through and ready for set because they want the actors to be like camera ready at
Hmm.
crew call, even if they have another hour of lighting. They just want them available for rehearsals. And a lot of the locations on this job were like far from where our base camp was. And the base camp is where all the trailers are and where we get everybody ready because we have a makeup trailer. And so everybody gets done in the trailer and then we travel to set. And some of the locations, could be a 20, 30-minute drive. So they just wanted everybody to be camera ready at the time for rehearsal. So we're there early, and then we are there past wrap because we have to clean everybody up too, take all that tattoo cover off.
Hmm. And
And
then I'm sure there's a ton of touch-ups
oh
throughout
yeah,
the
and then
shoot.
all day we're there, and then they have different scenes that would come up throughout the day. So we get those people ready, and it's a lot of logistics and a lot of planning when you're running a department, the makeup department. They also, I don't know if people have talked about this with you or not, but they block shot that the first 5 episodes and the second. So what was hard is we shot 5 episodes at the same time. So when you're doing a breakdown and you have your call sheet and you're shooting 5 scenes that day, they could all be from like different episodes. And because of the way that this show was, they could have been from different years and different parts of the show. So you had to be really organized about, okay, well, he had his mustache here, but he doesn't have it in the next scene. But then 2 scenes later, it's on, and all the notes about everything that's going on. And then with Daisy, she kind of was like clean and pretty and fresh. And then she kind of gets her stardom and starts putting makeup on. And then she starts to kind of fall apart because she's getting into drugs. So I did a whole breakdown, but I wanted it to feel really natural and not look like something that the audience was noticing as much as it just kind of worked with the timeline. But there were a lot of subtle changes to everybody.
Yeah, I wanted to explore that a bit more because I think this show really marks the evolution of these characters in a couple different ways. Like you said, the timeline is certainly one factor. There's a very real progression of, when the show begins and ends for these characters. But then there's also the rising stardom that they have, and, how does their style change perhaps as they're becoming more famous and they're hitting the road, they're doing a tour. And then some of them are declining deeper into drug use. And so, like, there's so many different ways that you need to mark an evolution for these characters. And in what ways were you using the makeup to show that? Like, you said it was subtle, but what are some of the things that you were doing there?
Okay, for example, for Riley, for when she was younger, she was very fresh-faced and glowy, and I added, I mean, it looks like she has no makeup on. She had a lot of layers of makeup on, but it's all cream based. I did like bronzers, cream bronzers that melted into her skin with blushes, that went across her nose. I wanted her to look sun-kissed and made sure, her under eyes were concealed and she just looked fresh and pretty. And then the turning point for her was for me was Greece. When she went to Greece, she kind of started wearing a little bit of makeup and
Mhm.
it was more like rust tones on her eyelids and a little bit of shift. And so that is what happens when she comes back to the States. And then when she goes on tour, she starts wearing like her stage makeup, which is her show makeup, which isn't a lot because her character didn't wear a lot of makeup. But she's also kind of this a bit of a mess person. So I wanted her makeup to be a little deconstructed and not perfect looking, like she
Mhm.
would have done it herself, maybe with her fingers or. So it started really fresh and pretty. And then as she's getting deeper into drugs, I started with the fresh and pretty doing warm tones on her eyes. And then when she's getting more into drugs, I shifted to cooler tone and I started to break down her face. So she would lose like her rosiness in her face. She would start having dark circles. Things were getting a little like messier. She was just a little paler.
Mhm.
So it's like subtle and a sheen, kind of like uh, just like a sheen on her skin in general.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask about this later, but I think we're right there right now. I mean, the Soldier Field look, which is, I think we're kind of given the glimpse that she's, is it like cigarette ash or whatever she's applying to her eye before we see like the finished product when we actually see her show up at the venue. Tell us a bit about that one, because that was a very DIY, much more dramatic look it was meant to be.
That was really fun. This is probably my proudest moment from the show in a way because so the producer, so in the books, she cuts her hair off. And they had done some tests, and for whatever reason, they weren't happy and they didn't want to go that direction. So the producer asked me like late one night if I could come up with some dramatic thing with makeup to do for that would show her state of mind and just that could be this big moment for her. So I kind of wrote up like an idea to them, and I think I scared them a little bit because I said, like in the scene in the Joker painting its face, or in I, Tanya, when she's like a little crazed and they're painting the face, like those intense moments. But I'm like, this is Daisy and she's pretty, and it wouldn't be that crazy as those characters, but those kind of moments. So, because she had been doing cocaine, like talked to her mom on the phone and was in like a really crazy space and everything going on with Billy. So I thought if she takes a black eyeliner, and she didn't really wear black eyeliner up to that point, but this is also late 70s, getting to early 80s. And when you think about 80s makeup and those heavy makeups, that was late 70s is when it really started, especially with rock stars. So it's kind of that pivotal moving into that direction. So and the eyeliners back then were hard. and it was my key who reminded me about the lighter trick. So basically, they used to light the eyeliners with a lighter to warm them up before they put them on their face because they would go on softer.
Mm-hmm.
And so she lit but she's high, so she lit the eyeliner and she's just staring at it, like the fire and the flame, and then she puts it out on an ashtray, rubs it around, and then she just takes her finger, dips it into the ashtray, and starts painting her face. And when I pitched it, I said it's like she's putting her war paint on. And and then I thought she should add glitter because she knew her friend Simone, they're reuniting, and she was coming to play, and she's a disco queen. So it's kind of an ode to her friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, and then some would get on Billy and transfer to him. And then when he goes back to see, Camilla, he's still got pieces of Daisy on him, kind of in a way,
Oh,
with the glitter. So my brain went like to all that, like storytelling. Anyway,
yeah.
I told Riley about it. She loved it. We did a little like um, pitch video that in the makeup trailer. I told her what to do, and she did it all in my makeup station, and we filmed it, and I showed it to the production, and they loved it. And then the writer Scott, he wrote it up, and he put in there like that she was putting her war paint on, and like it was fun. It was so for me, like, and when they shot the scene, he even came up. He's like, if you have any notes or you have anything to say, it's your scene. So it was like that was a special moment for me, and and I think it worked, in the end. So
That is so cool.
mhm.
What an incredible thing that you basically, did this collaboration. It was your idea. You did this collaboration with Riley to bring it to life, and then it became part of the show.
Yeah,
I mean, it's incredible and definitely a memorable scene that I would think to ask you about that look. So in terms of aging the characters up, we are going to see some interviews with them further into the future. What was the plan behind that? I mean, how do you approach getting that much distance from what we saw of them previously?
that was a real delicate balance. We did so many makeup tests with like full prosthetics, partial prosthetics, no prosthetics. We just jumped around so much and trying to really pinpoint what would be the right feel because they are so tight in all of the frames and you're jumping back and forth to the past, and we didn't want it to be jarring. So I felt like the subtle aging tr- would be better for that. So I ended up using more like paint and shadow. And there's these like kind of gel colors that melt into the skin a little bit that I would put down to create like kind of shadows and lines and things on the face. And then we would do stretch and stipple. We changed, you know, facial hair for the guys, makeup for the women. Made the eyes look a little bit more tired. There's just like a little tricks you can do to kind of shift someone's appearance without, yeah. So that's kind of, and Hello Sunshine really had a lot of input in it as well through the whole testing process. And it was everybody wanted to make sure they got it right. And it wasn't going to be something that was distracting while you're watching the show.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that
yeah, we only ended up using one prosthetic piece, and it was a double chin for Warren.
Oh, that's interesting. Now I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. Okay. Because that
Everything
was,
else,
I
yeah,
didn't pick
was.
that up. Yeah.
Mhm.
But there you go. I mean, he's living the high life on the boat. That's it. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So one of the things that I've been trying to ask as many different departments as I can is, from a technical side, especially when the band goes on tour, the second tour, we spend a lot of time with them and a few episodes on stage. And so that means, they go out on stage, they look like how they looked when they prepared to go out, but by the end, they're super sweaty, their hair is matted, like they're a little drenched. It affects their makeup. Like you have to have like we're some time into a concert look,
Yeah.
but they do this scene any number of times when they're shooting it. So How do you approach something like that from a technical standpoint for these long concert sequences?
I had a separate sweat breakdown for this purpose because sometimes when we were shooting, they would shoot out an order where they'd say, well, we want them to be starting a show here, but then, or they want to start with them finishing a show and then go back down a couple scenes later to the beginning of another show, or, so we would have to adjust the levels. So it just, yeah, it was just really being on top of it and the continuity. And then I had different levels of like, if is it the beginning of the show? Is it the middle of the show? Is it the end of the show? In the beginning of the show, they're not like as shiny. Middle of the show, maybe there's like a little sheen. And then the end of the show, they're a little sweatier. If they're on a lot of drugs, then they're even more sweaty, maybe mid show. It was like a lot of little details like that.
Yeah.
And I used like Josie Moran intensive oil. It's like a creamy oil to set, and we would do sometimes water on top. I used balms like the Jones Road Miracle Balm for a sheen, just different things.
And when you were having to sort of backtrack, so like when they were like fully greased up and then you had to do something where they were a little fresher, how were you probably didn't have time to like strip it all down and start over. So was there like a quick fix for that?
We would do a lot of resets. Um, yeah, like we just have to buff it down or something. When we were shooting in New Orleans, and there's like a sequence where they're shooting a lot of stage performances, and we were at like one theater, and I don't remember. We used it for as if it was a bunch of different place venues that they had gone to, and I would have like Riley would have like 10 minutes because the camera was in the same position. So she'd go up, like change her clothes, and I wouldn't always know what she was going to be wearing because they wouldn't decide ahead of time. And I just brought like a bunch of eyeshadow palettes and lip palettes, and I'd lay them all out on a table. She would come to me after she put on whatever she was wearing, and I was like, okay, we're going with this color. And it was just so fast. I'd have 5 minutes to change her over, and she'd go back down and and perform and then come up. I mean, we had days where it was like 5 different looks in a day,
Hmm.
like that.
It's a lot of adaptability needed for that to make that work, and a lot of preparation, that you kind of had a plan for how to keep it all consistent as well. This show also, I find more so than the book, the show really highlights moms
Mm.
from both within the main cast and also the moms of the people who were the main characters. And so we end up getting a few prominent figures in the show who are of a different generation that we're going to see on screen a fair amount. Between like Daisy's mom and Billy and Graham's mom, we get a little bit with Camilla's mom as well. So, what was your inspiration for their looks, knowing that they were just different generations within the same show?
For Daisy's mom, because I kind of they were like art, very artsy, like high class people. So I kept her a little more current with the time. So when it was 60s and Daisy was a kid, she was very pulled together with the cat liner, and she was, hosting her parties, and she had that kind of that feel, but it's a little bit like not the hippie 60s, but the art more higher end, wealthy people art scene. So she was pulled together. And then when we see her and she's older, and we aged her for that. And I kept her in a similar makeup. Like she just didn't ever really change the way she does her makeup, which a lot of people don't really do that. They'll just, they'll be like their heyday when they think they look the best, and then they just continue doing the same makeup for the rest of their life, kind
Hmm.
of,
Hmm.
whether it works or it doesn't. So we just that was the feel for her. And then with Camilla's mom was a little more. They're very religious. She's very clean cut. I just wanted her to be simplistic. She's probably somebody who wouldn't wear a lot of makeup, and Billy, their mom, uh, she's like a working class woman who, again, she probably put a little makeup on, but she's not really thinking about that much. She's like a working mom and she's just trying to survive.
Hmm.
So I was trying to show, I guess, and it's also depends on like where they're living, and if
Hmm.
they were in Pittsburgh, it's just not going to be as fancy as LA. I don't think they're going to be.
Although for Marlene Dunn, she is maybe the mom who would have had the most transition because she started that way.
Oh,
And then by the end, they buy her a house in this beautiful,
mhm.
like ritzier part of town. And so she was maybe living a new life. And was there any change there from your end, or was she still doing the things she used to do because that's all she knew?
No, there was a subtle shift. Yeah, I forgot about that. We did shift her, but she's still someone who doesn't wear a lot of makeup. We subtly aged her up a little bit and just had it really clean, simple makeup. I don't think she was her personality and the kind of person she was as someone who's like super glam or did a lot. I think she still stayed true to kind of who she was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So interesting. We get, Daisy Jones and the Six is kind of taking us into the rock world, but Simone takes us into the disco world. So, and really, once we get into that world, like any background actors we're seeing have a completely different vibe about them. And so, for you, what were some of the key influences that you were looking at to create those looks, especially given how many extras we're going to see in those dance club scenes?
That was really fun to put together. I think like the producers were kind of would make jokes about me because I had more research on Simone's character than anybody else in that era. Because I mean, it's a kind of a makeup artist dream.
Mhm.
Um, so I mean, for Simone herself, she started out and was, she was just a struggling artist and trying to be a singer. And so she was just a little more simple. She did her makeup and, she had a little more like lip gloss and shimmer, and she did a little more than like Daisy did. And then it evolved in when she went to New York and it started shifting and changing as she's playing clubs, but still she never was like huge. So I didn't go super crazy with her makeup in the disco realm. I mean, I did have some fun with like big lashes and glitter and blue eyeshadows. And uh, there was like, I pulled references from so many people I don't even like from that era and really just tried to fit what worked for her because she was also this is where costume becomes into play too is they were putting her in these really like earthy styles initially, so I didn't want to take her makeup too far because I felt that her would have been somebody who's disco but she's kind of like this earthy disco girl, so I had to like blend with that a little bit.
Mhm.
um we filmed all of those disco scenes with the background in Greece. And so we did the New York disco scenes in Athens. And that was interesting. We had background that were amazing, and some of them flew in from Paris. We had drag queens that flew in from Paris. I made boards with like the general looks I wanted, and each of the they didn't we filmed so much more than they aired. Like it didn't all make it into the cut. We did we did some really fun stuff. I had some people that were like body painted in silver, which I think got into part of the show, or was like a quick thing of it, because that those underground club scenes they were doing that. Like, I mean, it was like a big extreme, and it depended. There were so many different kinds of clubs, disco clubs back then, that some that were like a little more like people with money, that weren't going super crazy, but then you had some clubs that were the LGBTQ community, and some of them were like really going out there with the makeups. And so we added people in, and we kind of, I don't know, I'm trying to mixing my words up right now. We like I tried to create background and looks that would fit each of those aesthetics of those clubs. It was really interesting because I had artists working in Greece helping me with the background, like makeup artists, and I would make boards and basically sometimes there was language barriers in it, but we had a visual of like, okay, this is the look I'm going for, and they would create. They did an amazing job,
Oh,
really.
that's incredible. And you're right, because there is a sequence that we get where we are just sort of getting like a bunch of quick shots of Simone in different clubs. And it felt like different clubs to me.
Yeah.
Um, so all the many ways that that needed to be communicated, it felt like it came across. Since you mentioned Greece, let's talk about Greece. So, we also shot Greece for Greece. So a totally different aesthetic
Mhm.
within the same period piece. What were you looking for the makeup of the background actors in Greece?
You mean for when we were on Hydra?
Hydra.
Um, these were like European artists in the 70s. They didn't really wear a lot of makeup.
Hmm.
It was very natural. I did a bunch of research and it was pretty cool because, the book, in the book, they went to Hydra and we went to Hydra. And Hydra in the 70s was it's like this artist community. Artists from all over the world went there to create. And I mean, Leonard Cohen wrote albums there. And so when I was doing research, I found all these old photos of the people at that time living there. It was pretty magical, to be honest, because I mean, I love that era and I love Leonard Cohen and I love just all of that vibe. And so we were filming in places where these people had been, and I had the photos, the reference photos, and everything. So it was basically they were, yeah, just very natural. I mean, maybe it'd be like clean skin and like a burgundy red lip or something for when they went to the party for a woman,
Mm.
and more tattoo covering, a lot of tattoo covering.
Hmm. How does it change things when you have to do makeup for outdoor scenes like the Diamond Head Festival or like the Aurora cover album cover photo shoot? You're going to get some pretty demanding scenes outside, and my understanding too is the Aurora cover shoot was not like the best weather conditions either. Um, so what does that look like for your team when you're trying to like logistically when you're trying to put that together?
I mean, it doesn't really make a difference if you're indoor or outdoor. We just make sure we put sunscreen on them. But yeah, the Aurora day was crazy. We were out kind of in the desert outside of LA, and we got like every weather imaginable that day. I mean, it snowed, it hailed, it was freezing, it was so windy. And then it was sunny. It was crazy. And we didn't really have a lot of like cover. And it was so windy that they couldn't really create cover that would stay. And so we were just trying to keep them looking uh, like the weather didn't look like that and that it looked like a beautiful sunny day. So it's just the actors had like safe places to hang out, like in a van or somewhere in between. And really, like when you get into those situations, sometimes you're just at the mercy of the weather, and it's just well, whatever it's going to be, it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, in Greece, I had to kind of go with it. It was so hot and humid there, and there's something like your skin texture changes in those environments, and the actors kind of look that way. But I was like, this is perfect though, because it looks like it should look if so I left them like all glowy and I didn't fight it. I just thought it was great and it looks authentic.
That's the beauty of being able to shoot in the place that you're supposed to be set in. It
Yeah.
is
If not,
realistic.
I would have been adding, sheen and glow and stuff. But yeah, the Aurora Day, honestly, I'm impressed that it turned out as well as it did on screen. It looked amazing. It was a horrible day.
Oh my goodness. Well, you had mentioned earlier like night versus day shoots. I am wondering about that as well. Like for example, when you get we get an episode where we get a party at Billy and Camilla's house where we get that big ooh la la scene and everybody is in candlelight. When you're working on looks for something like that, how much does the fact that so much of it is going to be dark change your approach to makeup, especially knowing the lighting is probably going to be very different on the day?
I mean, I don't really change too much of the makeup, like the general makeup for that reason. Um, we didn't really have like a lot of special effects or things on the show, but if there, say there was a bruise on someone or they needed to look, look like they've been injured and it was really dark lighting, then I would probably bump up and make things a little more red or, make things shift some tones so that it the camera could read it.
Mhm.
But in those instances with how they looked, you just go with it. It's just natural.
Yeah. Were there any other particular episodes or scenes that were the most challenging for you or your team?
Hmm. Wow. Trying to think, remember. We filmed it like a few years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
It sounds like
um,
maybe nothing too traumatic, which is good.
Look, the show was crazy. It was busy. It was all over the place. It was hard. It was really stressful. We worked really long days. And it was kind of a crazy shoot in general, like one of the craziest I've been on. But everybody was so like into the project that we were just in it to get it. We were all in it together. So yeah, so I don't know. It's like that. Yeah, it was. I can't even remember anything that would have been too crazy. I mean, there's one day where I had to work like a 22-hour day. That was probably the craziest thing. Because
Hmm.
they had two units going and they were trying to finish a bunch of stuff because we had all kinds of crazy things that happened. When we were in New Orleans, there was a tornado. We had to escape like a lightning storm. We got flooded out. There was a bomb threat like in a place where we were shooting. We had so many crazy things happen, and it would push filming. It would like halt us. So by the end of the shooting schedule, they were really stressing to like get everything finished. And one of those last days, I had Riley in on a day shoot that I came in for, and then they were doing night scenes with Simone, and they were establishing like four of her disco looks that we were going to then do in Greece. So, because they were doing the exteriors of them in New Orleans. So that I worked like a 22-hour day that day. And because I had to do both of them, and I did both of their makeup, and I was then also establishing looks that I was going to have to be doing in Greece. And that was probably the craziest
Oh my goodness, that is so
day.
much.
Mm-hmm.
When you think like big picture, when you think back on this show, you've worked on so many projects, so many shows and movies. So for you, when you think about this one, what stands out to you as being different about it?
Oh, well, this show personally, it like spoke to my heart. It was just, I love the script. I love the stories. I love the era it was in. It was just like, it was a dream job. And I wish we could have gotten more seasons and I could have just been doing this for my career. I would have been happy. It's not often that you get a job that you're completely in line with personally and, aesthetically and in every way. So it was just really special. And the cast was amazing. And we were just there. We were all bonded so much, the crew and the cast, that it was a really special project.
Mm. So to make something like this happen, there are so many people who work on the project, and you've had a chance to sort of shout out various roles that you worked with along the way. But are there any other like sort of unsung heroes or people that you want to make sure, or departments that you want to make sure you've acknowledged that maybe didn't get mentioned so far?
Oh man. I mean, I became really close with the props department. They don't get, you don't think about them, but that's really important when it comes to that era. Um, yeah, there's just so much. I mean, I think you interviewed Frankie, and we became really close. There was just which that was pretty special because I don't think I really get to work close with a music supervisor often, but this show she was there all the time because when they were doing anything musical, and so it was nice to get to know her. And yeah, it was just like so many talented people on the show. Really, it was, yeah. And
Hmm.
it's nice because there was a small group of us, maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 or something, who were in Los Angeles, New Orleans, and Greece. And so we just all became super close, bonded, through all of that experience and traveling together.
Hmm. That's wonderful.
Mhm.
I know it's been a wild time for your industry, but I wanted to give you a chance to, I don't even know how to phrase this question these days, but like you can feel free to plug whatever you want to plug here. So if there's something upcoming or something that you've done that you want to make sure people see, or, whatever makes sense to you, what should we know about that you've worked on?
Well, yes, the industry here, it's been horrible. Hopefully it has bounces back. I've been incredibly fortunate. And I've been working. I did High Potential. I'm actually currently working on the season 2 right now, and I just wrapped a show that I'm really excited about. It's going to come out next year. It's another Hello Sunshine production with Apple this time, and it's called Lucky with Anya Taylor-Joy and Annette Bening and Timothy Olyphant, Drew Starkey. The cast is incredible.
You
Uh,
say Timothy Olyphant and I'm
yeah.
there.
And also, it's amazing. He was in Daisy too, so it was like
Yeah.
we got to work together again, and I love him. I adore him. I got to take care of Annette Bening on the show. She's just a dream. She's so incredible, and like being in her presence, watching her work it's she's amazing. Um, and I think the show is going to be really good. The scripts are incredible. So I'm really excited for that.
It's an interesting combination, Hello Sunshine and Apple, because Apple's putting some pretty good stuff out.
Yeah, well, the first time I worked with Hello Sunshine was with Apple. They did Truth Be Told, and they do morning
Nice.
show too.
Yeah.
So Apple's been doing a lot, yeah, recently, and they have a few shows I'm excited that are going to be coming out soon, and Lucky is one of them. It looks so beautiful, and the scripts are amazing. I mean, yeah, so.
Okay. Well, this is so many things that we can look for, and I'm really excited about this. And I'm very excited about who's in Lucky, so I need to check that out when it
Yeah.
comes out. But thank you so much for taking all this time and sharing your thoughts about your work on Daisy Jones and the Six. This was really informative for me. I can tell you that much, and hopefully, even those who know a lot about makeup, hopefully took some interesting details away as well, because you gave a lot of technical secrets too. So. This was such a blast. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me.
And to everybody who's watching this, go out there. Don't be the muse, be the somebody. Bye, everyone.